What's up everyone, my name is Alpha and today we're back with another Pokemon Challenge video. Today we're on Pokemon Radical Red and today's challenge will be can I beat Pokemon Radical Red 4.0 with only catching one Pokemon per route. I know a lot of you guys are enjoying the resurgence of Radical Red videos and I'm glad I can provide more for you guys and I'm happy to do more. If you guys know what a Nuzlocke is, we're going to do the first rule of a Nuzlocke, so we can only catch one Pokemon per route and it's going to have to be the first Pokemon we encounter. Normally in Radical Red, a lot of the Pokemon are really good. Most of the time you actually encounter really basic Pokemon and they're not that great, so we're going to have to play around that and hope we make a good team to get through the end of Pokemon Radical Red 4.0. If you guys don't know, Radical Red has a newest update 4.0 and it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest version of Radical Red ever. I'll get to why in a little bit, but just know it's the hardest one. To make the video a little more bearable, each of my Pokemon will be nicknamed after you guys in the comments, so thanks so much for leaving a comment in my previous challenge video. If you guys want to be nicknamed after your future Pokemon, just drop in the comments and hopefully I'll pick yours. And while it's down there, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. Anyway, let's get into the challenge video itself. You know how I said I do nickname each of my Pokemon after you guys? I do, but there's some Pokemon I reuse because I don't actually use the nickname too often, or I have Pokemon that I know I'm not going to use. I'm only using a Pokemon once, so I don't want to nickname after you guys and waste the nickname. People want to see their nicknames on screen, so I don't want to waste your nickname, so I do reuse them a little bit just so you guys can have a lot of screen time. But besides that, let's get into the challenge video itself. Of course, our starter Pokemon does not count as the Pokemon, so we can't even get a starter Pokemon, unfortunately. Actually, I don't know why. It's actually a Pallet Town encounters, but for some reason I didn't count it. Maybe I should have counted, because the first Pokemon we catch is going to be a Galarian Zigzagoon, which is cool. Our next Pokemon in Viridian City is going to be a Cubchoo, and you guys know, if for sure I'm not cheating or switching up the encounters, because there's no way I would have chosen Cubchoo as my second encounter. But Cubchoo is my next encounter. I'm not going to show every capture of every Pokemon, obviously. I'm just going to show the ones that make more sense or I use a lot of. I catch a Morlow in Route 22. We catch ourselves a Meditite, and in Viridian Forest, we're able to catch ourselves a Toedscool, which we've had every single video at this point in every single Radical Red 4.0 video. But from there, we can move out into Pewter City and get ourselves an Esper, which we're definitely not going to use a lot at all. Sorry about the Esper fans. But from there, we can move out into Pewter City, into the museum, and face off against Falkner. Falkner's a pretty easy fight. I mean, we have a full team up to level 15 is the level cap, and we also have Galarian Zigzagoon, which is honestly one of my favorite Pokemon to have in the early game. If you guys saw my early Radical Red videos, pretty good. But from there, we're able to clear through Falkner, obviously unlock the gym at this point, and face off against Brock. Brock's the first gym leader in the game. We're going to start the battle off against him using my Toedscool against his Geodude. We're able to absorb into his Geodude, and then he can self-destruct. So, okay. And then leaves me at 1 HP, allows me to outspeed his Arcan, paralyze it, and get an absorb off him, so that's kind of funny. From there, I go out to my Cubchoo, and surprisingly, he does a lot of damage. It knocks out the Arcan, and from there, he's going to switch out to his Onix. I do a little more damage with the Onix, Powder Snow into an Aqua Jet, which does a lot of damage. And then from there, I can switch out to my Meditite, Force Pump to knock out the Onix, and his final Pokemon will be a Vroom, which honestly, I kind of forgot was in the game in Scarlet and Violet until I saw Radical Red had it. So I'm able to knock out the Vroom pretty easily, and we're able to beat down Brock. And now we can move out into Route 3, where we catch ourselves a Fletchling, which I haven't used in a minute, so I'm always happy about that. Unfortunately, we actually go into Mount Moon and get ourselves a Noibat. That's kind of a bummer for an encounter, because Mount Moon has some really good encounters. From there, we're going to face off against the double battle fight in Mount Moon, which isn't too difficult. We're able to clear through him pretty easily. And then from there, we can face off against Archer, which Archer just... Archer's just Archer. He's not going to do too much. Outside of hardcore mode, he isn't too difficult. We're going to go into Cerulean City and unlock the move relearner. There is water in Cerulean City where you can counter Pokemon, but I don't want to get it right now. As well, we're going to move out into Route 25 and catch some more Pokemon. I think we catch the Applin and also a Bellaboat, which is nice. I'm not too sure why I didn't show it. But from there, we're going to move out and face off against Misty, the second gym leader in the game. We're going to face off against Misty, starting off with my Galarian Lanoon. Galarian Lanoon is able to go for Seed Bombs into the Clodsire, which I switch out into my Cubchoo against, which unfortunately I use Aqua Jet and regain some HP, which isn't the end of the world, but that's just, I completely forgot it has Water Absorb. I go out to my Meowstic, which is able to Side Shark and one-shot the Clodsire, and it's probably the most you ever see Meowstic do in this run. I'm also going to Thunder Wave into the Starmie and then just sack my Meowstic. Switch out into my Galarian Lanoon to Night Slash, knock out the Starmie. Her next Pokemon will be a Floatzel, which I'm like, Seed Bomb, and then hopefully I can outspeed. It doesn't outspeed. It's going to knock me out, but I go out into my Toedscool, which is able to go for a Mega Drain, knock out the Floatzel, and her final Pokemon will be a Frogadier. I'm going to sack my Toedscool and then switch out into my Meditite, and I'm able to knock out the Frogadier pretty easily, even though I got frozen or frostbitten. I'm able to still knock out the Frogadier and move out into Route 5 below Cerulean City, where we go into our raid dens, and this counts as our first encounter. Unfortunately, the Flamigo actually decides to pop out the Pokeball, which is like not very common. You don't see this too often, but unfortunately it pops out and we're unable to catch it. So that's unfortunate, but we get some nice quick balls, which we're going to use later on. But we also move out into Route 6, where we catch ourselves a Bounsweet, and then move into Vermilion City and move east into this raid den, which is going to have a Veluza, which we're going to have on our team. Actually, I don't think we have it at the end of the game on our team. But from there, we're going to move out into the SSN, and the SSN isn't too difficult. We have a pretty strong team, I would say so, especially with Toedscool. It's one of the coolest Pokemon in the game because it outspeeds everything, takes every hit, and it's just a weird typing. It's like 4 times weak to ice, but it's still very good. But anyways, from there, we're going to beat down the SSN, beat down a rival, and then get the HM for cut, and move out and face off against Lieutenant Surge, which isn't too difficult of a fight. We'll start the battle off against him using my Serena, which is able to Trop Kick into the Pincurchin, which I'm able to go for a Rapid Spin afterwards, get my speed up, and then from there, he's going to switch out to his Raichu. I go for a Rapid Spin, hoping I can outspeed it. It still doesn't outspeed with +2, which is crazy. I'm going to live a Side Shock at least, and then Trop Kick to knock out the Raichu. From there, he's going to switch out into his Manectric, which get a Trop Kick off, but he's going to knock me out with Hidden Power, and then I switch out into my Toedscool, which is going to switch out to his Bellibolt, which I'm a counter by going into my own Bellibolt. Bellibolt is able to eventually knock out his Bellibolt, which works pretty well. From there, he's going to switch out to his Palnut. I'm able to survive one hit against the Palnut and slack off against him, get a Mud Shot off and lower his speed, eventually going down to it. But I go out to my I almost said Jellicent. I go out to my Toedscool, which is able to Mud Shot and knock out the Palnut, and then from there, he's going to switch out to his Mega Manectric. I take a Flame Burst and 2-shot into him pretty easily as we're able to beat down Lieutenant Surge. Probably the last time Lieutenant Surge is going to be easy, because you'll see why later on. But from there, the level cap jumps, so we're able to evolve everything to fully evolve. We get ourselves a Medicham, a Talonflame, and also Galarian Obstagoon, which is just an Obstagoon, not Galarian Obstagoon. From there, we can move out into the Rock Tunnel and clear through it pretty easily. It's just muscle memory at this point as I go out and go into Lavender Town. We also go out into Saffron City and get ourselves Gale Wings on a Talonflame, which is very useful. From there, we can face up against Erica next. Erica is the 4th gym leader in the game. We're going to start the battle off against her using my Talonflame against her Rillaboom. And we're able to go for a dual wing beat against the Rillaboom and just 2-shot it. From there, she's gonna switch out into her. From there, she's gonna switch out into her Hisuian Electrode, which I'm like, this thing is definitely using an electric move. So I switch out into my Toedscool, which blocks the electric move and then, well, takes an explosion and almost goes down. From there, she goes out into her Meowscarada, which would knock out my Toedscool, but I still have my Talonflame in the back. I'm able to avoid one of her moves and go for Flame Charge, eventually get my speed up and then 2-shot into the Meowscarada. Okay, I don't somehow. Okay, the following turn I will, but that was strange how I didn't. From there, she's gonna switch out into her Meganium, which for some reason I thought I could roost against, but I wasn't able to as she's gonna knock me out. I go out to my Beartic. Beartic, unfortunately, is not strong. This is why I hate Beartic. It doesn't do enough damage. But from there, I switch out to my Medicham, which will knock out the Meganium for us. And the final Pokemon will be a Mega Venusaur, which I do have Zen Headbutt against, which I almost knock out in one shot, which is huge. Fortunately, Mega Venusaur puts me to sleep with Sleep Powder. I go out to my Obstagoon, which will take a Sludge Bomb and then return to knock out the Venusaur as we're ready to beat down Erica. From there, we're going to move out. We actually go out to Route 17, which is on the west side of Celadon City. We're able to catch ourselves a Scyther out here, which is nice. Evolve that into a Scizor and have Scizor actually beat down Giovanni for us because this thing is always broken. I'm actually debating which Mega Pokemon I want since I have Medicham and also Scizor. It also doesn't help as I go to Lavender Town and also get ourselves a Haunter. So I have 3 options now. I also go out into Saffron City once again, beat down Chuck using my Talonflame, and also allows us to get the Focus Sash later on. From there, we're going to move out into Saffron City Silphco, which we're going to face off against our rival, which isn't too hard of a fight. I'm still using Medicham, which, thinking back to it, Medicham is not that great of a Pokemon to use, so I got to be careful using Medicham from now on. You get the Megastone way too late with Medicham. From there, we're going to face up against Archer and Ariana, which actually took me such a long time because my team is actually not that good. So I have some good individual Pokemon, but as a team, as a unit, it's not that good. So I got to figure myself out later on. But from there, we're able to use Scizor once again to clean up against Giovanni, which is actually my most reliable Pokemon at this point. From there, we're actually going to go back. Since we have a Haunter, we're going to face up against Morty. Morty is going to be the Ghost-type gym leader, kind of gym leader's mini boss. We're able to beat him down and also get the Mega Stone for Gengar. And from there, since we cleared through Silph Co, we're able to face off against Sabrina. Sabrina's gonna be the 5th gym leader in the game. We're gonna start the battle off against her using an Aggron, which I got on Rock Tunnel. I don't have a nickname for Aggron because this is the only fight you're gonna use against. But we're able to Iron Head into the Hatterene and then Night Slash into the Indeedee. Fortunately, not knock out the Indeedee, but we're able to knock out the Hatterene at least. Her next Pokemon will be a Gardevoir, which I go for an Iron Head and Night Slash, which will knock out the Indeedee and also Gardevoir in one shot. So yeah, pretty clean. Next Pokemon will be a Brute Bonnet and also an Ursaluna. Ursaluna always goes for Protect, as I'm able to go for an Iron Head and Night Slash into the Brute Bonnet, which doesn't do a lot of damage as it's gonna knock out my Aggron. I switch out to my Medicham, which is able to go for a Drain Punch against the Ursaluna and Seed Bomb into it, but unfortunately it's getting close combat and high horsepower and knock out my Medicham and also Obstagoon, but also take down the Ursaluna as her last Pokemon will be Porygon 2 and a Brute Bonnet. I go out to my Scizor and also Gengar. I know Porygon 2 is gonna go for a Trick Room, so we're gonna double attack into the Brute Bonnet as we're able to knock out the Brute Bonnet, and then Porygon 2 should just be formality as we're able to beat him down pretty easily. We're able to beat down Sabrina without any troubles. I think it's first try too. Can't remember if it was first try, but from there we're gonna move on into Cycling Road, which isn't the most fun. I was really thinking about doing a Nuzlocke until I thought about this run. Actually no, there's 2 points in the game which I'm like pretty sure I can't beat without like restarting a few times. I could beat anything else besides Cycling Road and one more fight I'll show you later on. But from there, once we get to the bottom of Cycling Road, we have to catch ourselves an Amistar at the bottom, which I think is around 18. I'm not too sure, but it's looking for a Dracovish, but we got an Amistar. From there, we can't actually head into the gym unless we rematch 4 gym leaders of the 5 gym leaders available to us. We're able to face off against Brock, beat him down at least, beat down Misty. After we beat Misty though, Misty gives us a Finizen, and Finizen's OT or Met place is going to be at Cerulean City, which actually counts as my first encounter in Cerulean City because we didn't go fishing earlier. So we're able to find ourselves a Finizen. You know what, we definitely take that. So Finizen's going to be on our team, and we're going to have our Palafin later on. From there, we're going to face off against Erica, which super easy fight. And then we face up against Lieutenant Surge, which is probably one of the hardest fights in the game, just because his Pokemon are so tanky and so strong. Don't get me started in hardcore mode. This thing is absolutely broken. He's the most broken trainer at hardcore mode. I cannot believe people actually Nuzlocke this game. Maybe I'll try it in the future. From there, once we beat Lieutenant Surge, we're able to face off against Koga finally. Koga, so much easier than Surge. We're gonna start the battle off against him using my Medicham against the Swallow. Probably a dumb play, but it actually allows me to go for a high jump kick as he switches out into his Aselgor, knocks him down to his low HP, and then I'm like Bullet Punch, knock out the Aselgor. From there, he's going to switch out to his Drapion, which would knock me out with a Wicked Blow, obviously. I could go out into my Toedscroll thinking I can outspeed. Obviously didn't, but I'm able to live it. Go for Sport and then Giga Drain because I know Greninja is going to come out next. From there, I'm going to definitely switch out. I want to give him Battle Bond. Switch out to my Scizor, which will Bullet Punch into the Greninja and knock him out as he switches out into his Toxicity, which I'm like, well, that's a bad sign. I go out into my Mega Gengar as I take an Overdrive barely, and I'm able to Shadow Ball into him. Not almost knocks him out, but he's gonna knock me out with an Overdrive. I go out to my Palafin. I'm able to Oxygen, knock it out of Toxicity, and then switch out into my Scizor against the Iron Valiant. I'm able to Bullet Punch and one-shot him, which is crazy. From there, I'm also able to do some chip damage against the Swallow, and then go out into my Hero Mode Palafin, which is able to Oxygen and knock out the Swallow and also the Greninja. And the Sleeping Drapion, I'm able to go for a Liquidation and 2-shot into him as we're able to beat down Koga. Probably like 2 or 3 tries, way easier than Surge. From there, I go out into the Safari Zone, and our first encounter in the Safari Zone is going to be a Hawlucha. So we're going to catch this as a Hawlucha, which is not too bad. Luckily, it didn't run away. And from there, we're going to use Hawlucha against Price at Seafoam Island and get ourselves the Choice Scarf, which will be useful very useful later on. And then from there, we're going to face off against Jasmine, which we don't really use the Choice Band, but we're just going to have it anyways. And from there, we're going to move out into the mansion. Celadon Mansion, we're able to get ourselves a Galarian Rapidash, which I think we do use once as we face off against Blaine. Blaine's the 7th gym leader in the game. We're going to start the battle off against him using, obviously, Galarian Rapidash. I didn't really have a plan with this thing at all. It looks like I just sacked it in the first turn. I think it could have been any other Pokemon. Go out into my Amistar next, and Amistar is able to get a Shell Smash, and it does have Focus Sash. So I guess my plan here was to use Ancient Power and hopefully just sweep down the rest of his team. But he switches out to his Exeggutor, which will outspeed me and knock me out anyway. So I'm like, okay. So from there, I switched out into my Noivern, which is like a weird combo to have. Noivern's able to go for a Leech Life and then 2-shot into the Exeggutor. This is a really weird team I have. I'm glad I never used this again, but he sends out his Charizard next, which will knock out my Noivern. From there, I decided to go out into my Gengar against the Charizard, which is able to outspeed him, go for Shadow Ball, as he goes out to his Scovillain, and then he's able to outspeed me and destroy me. I was like, how fast is this Pokemon? But anyways, I go out into my Talonflame to outspeed him with Gale Wings, which was nice. I also break down Typhlosion's Eruption power using Dual Wing Beat, which is very nice for us, as we're able to 3-shot him essentially, get a Roost Up just to cheese him, and then from there he can switch out to his Armarouge. I'm going to get a Dual Wing Beat, but unfortunately he's getting an Armor Cannon and knock me out. But lucky enough, Hawlucha's in the back. Hawlucha actually does not have Unburden at this point. Figured that out later on. So I'm actually using a Hawlucha without Unburden. But from there, we're going to move out into Cerulean Cave and face off against Archer and Ariana, which isn't too difficult of a fight. I'm able to just basically pivot between all my Pokemon and beat down Archer. And then, luckily enough, I'm glad this back-to-back fight isn't too difficult, as they make Ariana's team so much easier to handle compared to Archer. And then from there, we can face off against Giovanni. Giovanni started giving me a bunch of issues, so I started using a Grimmsnarl to actually handle the Mega Mewtwo Y. That's how I ended up beating down Giovanni for the last fight. And from there, we're going to face up against the final gym leader in the game. We're going to face up against Claire. Claire's going to start the battle off against us using an Aerodactyl, which always goes for Taunt if I have a status move. So I go for an Iron Head into a Bullet Punch to knock him out. Super easy. As for next Pokemon will be a Duraludon, which is going to Mega Evolve. I switch out to my Palafin because I know it's going to take the hit. Turn into my Toedscool, which lucky enough it worked, as I'm able to avoid an electric move. I go for a Miracle as he switches out into a Roaring Moon. I'm able to survive a Crunch at least and go for a Spore. I also break the Dragonite's Multi-Scale with Giga Drain, which isn't saying too much, but it still broke the Multi-Scale, as I'm able to go out to my Mega Gengar and Shadow Ball twice into him, outspeed him with one Dragonite as well. And then from there, she can switch out to her Naganadel, which can go for Nasty Plot. I'm able to do some chip damage with Shadow Ball, but she's gonna one-shot me with Draco Meteor. And from there, Scizor is actually able to freely clean up. Bullet Punch to knock out the Naganadel, and then her next Pokemon will be a Duraludon. This thing does have a move to check me, but I go out to my Flapple, which again, maybe not the best play. It just gets sacked. I switch out into my Hawlucha, which is able to go for a Drain Punch. This thing's not winning me any fights, but it's gonna go down to the Magearna, which I kind of want. I go out into my Scizor, which can go for Sword Sense in front of him, and I can go for multiple Sword Sense against the Magearna, as I'm able to eventually get +6, and a Bullet Punch to knock out the Magearna, Bullet Punch to knock out the Duraludon, and a Bullet Punch to knock out the Roaring Moon, which super easy as we're able to beat down Claire. And then from there, we're able to face off against our rival in Route 22, clear him down pretty easily. And then from there, we face off against Brendan, and my Hawlucha didn't outspeed a Sceptile. I'm like, what ability are you? Limber. I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing. So we have to quickly beat down Brendan and then go back, switch the ability with an ability capsule to get Unburden, and then go through Victory Road. So lucky enough, I do have the right ability finally as I go through Victory Road. Funny thing to note, this final trainer at the entrance of the Indigo Plateau or the Pokemon League, if you flinch the Gigalith, he will actually be forced to switch his Gigalith out, as his Shedinja will actually go down. He actually don't know what to do next. So yeah, that's kind of funny. I did not know that. So we're going to do our final preparations before the Pokemon League, obviously. And then from there, we're going to head into the Pokemon League and face off against the Elite Four. We're going to start the battle off against Lorelei, the first Elite Four member. And she's a water team, so her Politoed and Poliwrath face off against my Scizor and Toedscool. I'm going to go for Spore against the Poliwrath, as he goes for a Scald and also Close Combat. I'm able to get a Sword Sense off against her and then Giga Drain into the Politoed. I'm able to survive some hits, and then from there, I'm like, you know what? Iron Head into the Poliwrath and then Giga Drain into the Poliwrath as well. It's going to switch out into the Walking Wake, which we'll definitely take, as we do a lot of damage against them. From there, I'm able to go for an Iron Head against the Politoed, because I know the Walking Wakes can go for a Protect. I'm able to knock out the Politoed, and unfortunately my Scizor goes down too, but it actually works out for me, as I'm able to go out into my Hawlucha against the Kyogre and the Walking Wake. It's, for some reason, Walking Wake decides to go for a Protect, as I'm able to high jump kick into the Kyogre. I'm able to survive against the Kyogre's Water Spout because of the high jump kick, and then that allowed me to go out to my Gengar, and Gengar is able to go for a Shadow Ball against the Kyogre, and high jump kick would knock out the Kyogre, but Walking Wake still using Protect constantly. I'm not too sure what's wrong with the AIs. Shadow Ball into the Iron Bundle to knock it down to the Focus Sash, and then from there we can just target down the Iron Bundle. As her next Pokemon will be a Swampert, I'm able to just target down a Swampert, and then her final Pokemon will be a Sleeping Poliwrath, which we're able to just double attack and knock out pretty easily. From there, we're able to beat down Lorelei and move out into the next Elite Four member. The next Elite Four member we're going to face off against is going to be Bruno. Bruno. We're gonna start the battle off against Bruno using my Veluza, which I told you back then. I'm barely using Veluza, by the way. Veluza could be replaced with anything. I just want to have fun with Veluza. It has an ability that actually ups slashing moves, which is kind of cool. We're gonna face off against Bruno's Infernape using my Veluza, which is able to Aqua Cutter and then Aqua Jet to knock out the Infernape. And then from there, you can switch out into Zacian, which I'm able to dodge, move against, and then I'm able to go for a Spore, and then I'm able to Earth Power into the Zacian. It's gonna wake up, always wakes up the first turn. It's gonna knock out the poor Toedscool. I go out into my Hawlucha, which has a Focus Sash on. I'm gonna go for a Drain Punch and knock out the Zacian. His next opponent will be an Urshifu. If you guys don't know how to play around the AI, always go for one setup move and then attack it in the next turn, because the AI is always flipped like that. So we're able to get a Drain Punch off against the Urshifu and knock him out in one shot. Also knock out the Como, and his next opponent will be an Iron Valiant, which will survive a high jump kick, surprisingly. It's gonna knock me out. As I go out into my Palafin, which does not outspeed the Iron Valiant, but I'm able to survive a Thunderbolt. Switch out into my Veluza against his final opponent, which is gonna be Lucario. I'm gonna do some chip damage with Aqua Cutter and get 2 Aqua Jets against him, which is kind of funny. He just lets me do it. I have 2 more Pokemon in the back, which has priority. So go out to my Scissor, Bullet Punch to knock out Lucario, and we're going to beat down Bruno pretty easily. From there, we're going to face off against Agatha, which actually took me 3 attempts. We're going to start the battle off against Agatha using my Veluza. Veluza is able to go for an Aqua Cutter and then Aqua Jet into the Roaring Moon, unfortunately, as it switches out. I'm like, uh-oh. I go out to my Scissor, and I'm like, oh, well, I just sacked Scissor for no reason and saved my Veluza. So from there, I'm going to switch out into my Hawlucha with a Focus Sash. I go for a Sword Dance against her, but then she can switch out to her Goldango, which I'm like, oh, this is not good. I go out to my Toedscool. I'm able to Mirror Coat into the Goldango, but I tank it too easily, so it actually doesn't go down. From there, she can switch out into her Gengar, and I also tank a Sludge Wave, surprisingly. I'm able to Spore into the Gengar, Earth Power into him, and knock him out. I'm like, Toedscool is so broken. This thing is so broken. Too much utility. Unfortunately, Marshall would knock out my poor Toedscool, but it did a lot of work. I'm going to go to Veluza, and Veluza is able to do some nice work against the Marshadow, allowing us to go out to my Palafin to get a Jet Punch against the Marshadow. Wow, it did not kill the first time. That's pretty bad. Maybe 2-shot into him at least, and then from there she can switch out to a Roaring Moon. I'm like, I don't have any options. Now I might have thrown because I just let the Roaring Moon get a Dragon that's off against me and then crunch into me to knock me out. I'm like, okay, at least my Hawlucha has Focus Sash. Under the impression is gonna knock me down to my Focus Sash. It goes for Iron Head. I'm gonna survive it easily and then go for a Drain Punch against him, regain some HP, and if there she can switch out into her Hisuian Zoroark, which is obviously undercover as a Chi-Yu. I'm able to Acrobatics and knock him out. Her next opponent will be a Goldango. Maybe I should have stayed in, but I don't assume she's gonna go for a Ghost move, so I go for a Gengar. Make It Rain does a lot of damage anyways, so I'm like, oof. That's not a good move, but I go for a Shadow Ball against the Goldango and knock him out. Her last opponent will be a Chi-Yu, which I'm like, oh wait, I could Destiny Bomb right here and knock out the Chi-Yu with me, as I'm able to beat down Erica with just a little bit of luck. From there, we're going to face off against the next Elite Four member, which is going to be Lance. We're going to start the battle off against Lance using my Veluza again. Veluza always traps the Aerodactyl, knocks him out. It's a free leading Pokemon at this point. From there, he's going to switch out to his Dialga, which I'm like, well, don't have any answers. I gotta stay in. Unfortunately, Veluza's gotta do some chip damage. Veluza does no damage as I get Roar Time out into my Palafin. Palafin's able to flip turn into the Veluza. Veluza does not take another move. So I go out into my Gengar next. Gengar is able to get a Hypnosis off against Dialga into Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, I get a Roar Time out, but that's fine as I made it to a High Jump Kick into Dialga. It doesn't Roar Time me out, which is nice, as I made the Drain Punch into the Dialga. As he switched out into Salamence, I'm like, that's a tough move. I'm gonna go for a Swords Dance, you know, just gain my attack up, and I'm at this point where I'm at +6. Actually, I'm +5, and then he's getting double edge into me. I get a Focus Sash. I have Unburden. I'm able to essentially outspeed everything. Unfortunately, he has a Dragonite with extreme speed in the back, so I guess I don't outspeed everything. I go out to my Scissor after that. I'm able to go for a Swords Dance, and I'm able to Iron Head into him. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it broke the multi-scale, allowing me to go for a Bullet Punch to knock out the Dragonite. And then from there, he's gonna switch out into his Melmetal, which I'm like, roost off the damage. I'm like, wow, this is kind of not that good. I'm going for an Iron Head, looking for flinches, and eventually it works out. He starts going for Elemental Punches for some reason. It's actually doing less damage. Eventually, I'm able to flinch down the Melmetal, live with 1 HP against him, and Iron Head to knock out the Melmetal, as his next opponent will be an Iron Jugulis, which I'm able to Bullet Punch, crit him, and knock him out. His next opponent after that will be the Primal Dialga that's still asleep at 1 HP, as I'm able to bullet punch and knock him out, as well as we're able to beat down Lance with a broken crazy Pokemon. From there, we're going to face off against our rival, the champion of the game. We're going to face off against Blue next. Blue is going to start the battle off against us using a Pheromosa. I do have a Veluza, and Veluza perfectly works. Aqua Cutter into Aqua Jet to knock out the Pheromosa. From there, he switches out to his Metagross, which I really wish I had Night Slash, but unfortunately I don't. But I'm able to Aqua Cutter into him multiple times and get some nice chip. I'm able to knock him down to red HP, and then allow myself to go out into my Palafin to flip turn into him. As he goes out to his Koraidon, I'm like, oh, I'm able to go for a Swords Dance as he also goes for a Swords Dance, and allow myself to go for a high jump kick. I'm able to also survive a Dragon Claw because of Focus Sash and knock out the Koraidon. His next Pokemon after that will be Eternatus, which if only I had an Earthquake, I could just knock him out, but unfortunately he didn't knock me out, which I do some chip damage. I go out to my Toedscool, and unfortunately it's just too tanky. It doesn't kill him with Miracle, which is unfortunate. So Toedscool actually goes down because it's too good at the game. Eternatus will go down to my Hero Mode Palafin, and then from there he's going to switch out to his Yveltal, which I Wave Crash into. He's going to Dark Hole me. I thought I survived that, but I don't. Go out into my Gengar next, go for Hypnosis, obviously. Go for a Sludge Bomb. He stays asleep, actually. And then from there, he does not wake up. He goes for Sucker Punch, but I'm able to get a Shadow Ball off and knock out the Yveltal, knock out the Metagross, and his final Pokemon will be a Ditto, which Dittos into my Mega Gengar, which could be scary, but I do have Scizor in the back, which survives a Shadow Ball, and Bullet Punch would knock him out pretty easily. Muscle Band Scizor for the win. We don't even need the Mega Evolution. Scizor is just super broken. I think I use Scizor in every single battle, I'm not gonna lie. Even at the end, when it didn't really matter, any Pokemon could knock him out, I'm pretty sure Scizor held it down. So my most reliable Pokemon, gotta say, is it's Mega Gengar or Scizor. I think I gotta give it to Scizor, because Scizor just bails me out, even through Psychic Terrain. Like, I was cooking through Sabrina, super easy. But anyways, that'll be the end of the video. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you guys can, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. If you guys want to see more Radical Red 4.0, let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, my name's Ben Alpha, and I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'm out. Peace.